All right, let's get started. Thanks for joining us today. We have a really exciting webinar for you today to talk about wellness in the workplace. Before we get going though, I wanted to start today's session with a short 5-minute mindfulness practice. And we have our coach, Holly, that's going to run through that. Holly, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dee. I am Holly Morphew, and it is my honor and privilege today to be your guide for this gratitude meditation. So please come into a comfortable seated position. Sit up in your chair, spine tall, feet flat on the ground. Open your chest, roll your shoulders back, and begin to settle into your body. Allow yourself to breathe, taking long, slow, deep breaths through the nose and out through the mouth. Do this a few times, inhaling and exhaling, and try to make your inhale and your exhale even. This slow, steady breathing is sending a signal to your brain that it is okay to come into a relaxed state. For the duration of our meditation, breathe naturally and at your own pace, finding a comfortable rhythm for you. Now, if it's comfortable, close your eyes, and you might find that you're having many thoughts. That's okay, that's normal. Allow them to pass without any judgment. There's no need to hold on to anything right now, just be. The practice of meditation allows us to drop out of our head and the clutter of thought and into our heart, where there is clarity of truth. Continue to breathe. Bringing your awareness now to your heart center, imagine a white light emanating from there, bathing you in gratitude to the top of your head, all the way down to the tips of your feet, and allow this white light of gratitude to rest there. Your feet, which have carried you all the way to this moment and throughout your entire life and have been there for you and supported you with every step. Silently express gratitude now for your feet. And drawing that white light of gratitude up your ankles, through your knees, up your strong thigh muscles, through your hips and into your hands now. Your hands that you use to write, type, wave, pat a child on the back, dress yourself and work. Give thanks now for your hands and all that they do for you every day. Drift your awareness now up to your mouth that tastes and savors and helps to nourish the body. Your mouth that whispers and speaks. Your mouth that provides your voice to be heard or says, I love you to a loved one. Silently express gratitude now for your mouth. And now bring this white light to your nose, feeling the cool air as you inhale and the warmth of your exhale. Express gratitude for how this nose allows you to smell the ocean breeze when standing at the water's edge, or the beautiful flowers that blossom, or the sweet scent of the summer's rain. Silently express gratitude for your nose. And drift your attention to your ears now. Feel gratitude for how your ears bring in all the sounds around you. The wonderful sounds of life. The sounds of music or laughter or the voices of those you love. The sounds of pure silence. Silently express gratitude for your ears. Drawing this white light of gratitude to your eyes, Your beautiful eyes that allow you to see in vibrant colors in this great big world that surrounds you. Your eyes that allow you to see a sunrise or a sunset, or your gentle self in the mirror. Silently express gratitude for your eyes. Breathe in and feel more gratitude, and on each exhale, sending that gratitude out. Breathe in more grace and ease, and allow that to flow through your heart center. Notice how you can cultivate the feeling of gratitude by simply bringing your awareness to the various things in your life. This feeling can be cultivated naturally, and when it happens, allow yourself to sink into that feeling. Fully surrender to your heart, not the thoughts in your head. Experience the warmth, love, and compassion that gratitude brings you. Rest and reflect here for a moment. And when you feel ready, begin to wiggle your fingers and toes. Open your eyes and come into the room, fully awake and fully alive.
Holly, thanks for such a wonderful practice. I'm definitely feeling a lot more relaxed. I was all tensed up. Thank you for that. And everyone that's attending, please let us know where you're from. I see somebody said they're from Guatemala City in Central America. So we have a global audience today. So love to hear where you're attending from. Just type it in the chat box. And Holly, you've been coaching, for so many years now. What's the impact been of this pandemic on people's mental health and financial well-being?
It's tremendous, Dee. And what I have been seeing is that everyone is feeling something different, but the spectrum, it's almost like it's increased and no one is in a similar position. Some people are thriving financially right now because of the pandemic, and others are not. And so it's a really interesting time.
Well, thank you for that. You set us up perfectly to introduce the panel. So I want to bring the panel in. Thank you, Holly, for being with us.
Thank you.
Panel, if you would like to come back in. Here we go. We have today 3 leaders in the human resources field from 3 different companies. Michelle from Ansys, Cassie from Bamboo HR, and Bernard from Gusta. Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to start by saying, asking you guys, how are you doing? Michelle, love to start with you.
Sure. Doing well. I think one of the things that, being able to adjust to change is very critical. That's one of the things that are extremely important in life general. And then when the pandemic hit, trying to find resources. I enjoy running. So that was one of my ways to still be able to get out and kind of stay mentally well through all of this.
That's good to hear. And also, if you could introduce yourself as well, Michelle.
Sure. So again, Michelle Gardner, I oversee the global benefit programs at Ansys. Ansys develops and markets multi-physics engineer software simulation for product design and testing and operations. Sometimes it helps to kind of know the company that we come from. But yeah, as I shared, I fell in love with running, and it's been a great self-care through the pandemic.
Thank you, Michelle. Cassie, how are you doing? And a bit about yourself.
I'm doing well. By way of introduction, I'm Cassie Whitlock. I lead the HR team at Bamboo HR. Hopefully you've heard of us, but if you haven't, Bamboo HR focuses in the HR space. So we have software that helps you do your jobs better, but we also love to lead out and talk about the issues that businesses, employees, and HR leaders are facing. So glad to be here. In the middle of the pandemic, I've really leaned into my gardening and being able to go outside and just feel the sunshine and have fresh air and kind of get my hand in some good dirt and grow something. And that's something that really helps to center me and let go of the stress of having to, support over 600 employees who are also being hit by things in the pandemic and uncertain and rapidly changing times. But glad to be here today.
So running and gardening. Bernard, over to you. How are you doing? A bit about yourself.
Thank you, Dee. I'm doing well, everybody. I woke up on the right side of the bed, so that's always a good thing. By way of background as well, I'm Bernard Coleman. I'm the head of employee engagement at Gusto, and Gusto is a people platform. So what does that mean? It helps businesses, particularly small businesses, focus on onboarding, paying their employees, benefits, and so much more, and just basically being that one-stop shop for all things that small businesses need to run. What I'm doing in terms of my wellness, I like to get on my elliptical, zone out on watching comedy specials on Netflix, and I just do that for an hour, and I'm laughing the whole time. It makes exercise that much more digestible. And then one thing I will say that is a bright spot, if there are any in the era of COVID, I get to spend much more time with my family. I used to travel extensively, and now I get to spend time with my wife and 3 daughters.
That's so good to hear. And myself, I'm Dee Sharma. I'm one of the founders of Wellness Coach. We are a wellness platform. Michelle here is one of our early clients, so thank you for believing in us, Michelle. I have a story of starting companies. I'm an entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur. It's my 4th startup. But my wife and I found burnout and depression, and which led us to start this company. I want to just actually head that question over to Michelle. We were just talking about how it's gotten easier to talk about depression. Tell me more about that, Michelle.
Yeah, I think, organizations, we've all been promoting EAP programs forever at this point. And they've always been in the back burner. They've always been there to be able to support the employee population. However, there's always been a stigma around being able to come out and say, I have depression, I have anxiety. And, what has happened with the pandemic that has allowed employees, I think, to feel more free about understanding that everybody, and the news has really helped as well, right? We're always on social media. Everyone seems to now be acknowledging that there's anxiety and stress and depression. So it's really given an outlet. Again, I hate to say that there's been an opportunity through this pandemic, but when we look at it that way, there is a real opportunity now for employees to not feel such a stigma about being able to say, I have anxiety, or this has caused me significant depression, or I've seen depression in my kids. And it's allowed those conversations and people to reach out to the resources that they truly need versus feeling like they have to struggle on their own.
That's very well said. In the chat box, those attending, let us know how you are doing as well. Cassie, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, to Michelle's point, there are positives that can come out of the hard things. I know that as the pandemic started for us, we had an all hands manager meeting, and Brad Rencher, our CEO, stepped up and said, a crisis is a terrible thing to waste, and talked about how do we want to make sure that we are focused on the right things, but we also come out the other side of this as better people, as a better business, as better managers. And so that's been a big focus for us. We've always had a really good focus on employee well-being. It's not just a core pillar to our benefits strategy, but it's a pillar behind our employer brand, the employee experience that we promise and strive to deliver on a daily basis. And so I do appreciate that because of the pandemic, talking about mental health and the larger opportunity of employee well-being is front and center. And for the first time, businesses across the world are having to dive in deep and figure out what that means for how they support their employees. So while it's hard, there are difficulties everybody is facing, I do appreciate the opportunity that we have to really talk about it in meaningful ways so that we can have better outcomes going forward. So I love the social opportunity that we all have in the business world to embrace this opportunity.
I love the way you put it, like embrace the pandemic and see what good things can come out of it. I love it. And Bernard, just to add on to that, and also like what, from your perspective at Gusto, how have you changed things for your employees before and now that we're in the pandemic?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, at Gusto, what drew me to it was the sense of community and the sense of belonging. And then the question becomes, while you're going from being in office to remote, is how do you keep that connectedness, that sense of community? And this is different for folks who aren't remote, 100% remote. So it's a real challenge. one thing that we had that in the physical space was something called surprise and delight. So then we had to think about how do we surprise and delight our employees virtually. So one of the things we rolled out that I thought was really interactive and fun was this whole movement series talking about mindfulness, and we did meditation, and we have yoga in the mornings, and staff could tune in for that. And then we had breathing exercises, much like we did at the beginning of this call. Then we actually have cooking with leaders. So just really ways to try to interact with people, just to break up the monotony of the day. Because normally at Gusto, you go and you see people in the hall and all those interactions that you normally have. How do you replicate it virtually? And so we've been really exploring different ways to engage. Zoom water coolers are what we were doing, so people could like simulate what it would be like to go to the water cooler. So just really trying to keep that connection. Because otherwise it otherwise could be 8 hours of meetings and you've seen everyone but no one.
That's so true. It's like the Zoom fatigue is real, you know, and we're doing back-to-back meetings. We don't have that in-person quick 5-minute check-ins, you know, we used to have. And I was also thinking the meditation we did before we started with Holly, she said, you know, thank your nose. And I'm like, we can't smell anybody on Zoom, you know, we can talk to people, but there's not all the senses are live anymore. So how are you guys adjusting? Maybe Michelle, you want to just highlight how's the team adjusting to this new reality?
You know, I think that the team, it varies, right? I mean, we have populations that have been working from home. We have populations that are somewhat used to working from home, and others that, you know, really need that interaction. I think the adjustment, again, kind of tying back to ours, is that, you know, normally you would go on site. In our situation, we would go on site and we would conduct wellness, you know, initiatives and programs and do a lot of things more in person. So that shift of what we've had to do more virtually, you know, one of the ways that we've been able to do that is through Wellness Coach. We're able to put out on our, you know, internal social media to promote the different programs. And what's really helpful is, you know, normally you make it out there, maybe once, maybe twice a year when you're actually in person, and you're trying to get a whole bunch of information in a very short period of time that you're meeting with employees. And, you know, again, an opportunity that's been here that's been wonderful is you have multi-generational groups. So, and healthcare and wellness is personal to everybody. So we're able to take a lot of that and personalize it and offer many more opportunities for employees to engage and learn things that maybe they never really thought they would even be interested in. One of the programs that we focused on was a financial well-being. And that's not something I would say that we had originally really intended, but through the pandemic and through, you know, information we were hearing back from employees, you know, we said, hey, this is a great opportunity to be able to go out and help employees understand, you know, the importance of an emergency fund, for example. And other programs that employees have been able to engage in. We have employees globally now, I would say, that normally would have programs or things they would do just for maybe their country. And now we have individuals that have yoga classes and meditation classes that offer it up to the whole company that are across the world. So it's expanded that, and that cultural experience has really been helpful for us to adjust as well.
There's always silver linings, and this is a really good one. You know, you get to see more international staff. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really been it's a lot of our employees were already very much focused on their well-being and the things that they did. So this gave them another avenue to actually reach out to employees. And now you're interacting, right? You're not seeing face-to-face, but you're interacting with them and having a yoga class with somebody in Greece or the UK that you normally would have never potentially even interacted with. So it's opened up a whole nother new area or a way of socializing with your employees.
Yeah, we're onto something here. And Cassie, I wanted to ask this. So a lot of the audience today, by the way, guys, is human resources. And, you know, one of the questions we got was, how do you sell wellness within your company, especially to your leadership? So Cassie, let me start with that with you. And then Bernard, if you want to just follow on that question.
Sure. For us, it's more about tying it back into the bigger picture, and that wellness is an component of the overall opportunity for the business and even the business strategy. More and more, we recognize that employer brand has to be a component of your business success strategy because employees expect it. They are out there engaging online. There are review sites. Employees have a voice, and they're trying to help influence businesses. And so making sure that employee well-being is a part of your overall business strategy for talent acquisition, for employer brand, but then also the way that you focus and make your decisions. So for me, it was easy because we've always cared about having a good experience at work. But there's always work to do. And how do you keep people focused and buy in? So for example, we just finished we're just tying out our 3-year plan. And so we do 3 years in advance, and we're finishing out that planning session. And, you know, there are so many things to do. How do you choose? And when you walk away with 5 OKRs, there's an area that's missing and a gap. And so have you built multiple mechanisms within your business to help capture these opportunities? So we're pretty intentional in I'm a big believer in mission, vision, values. And when a business has that, it's the perfect framework to tie in all of your people programs and initiatives. So for example, for our benefits program, we have a purpose statement, right? Our mission. And then for each of our 5 pillars that go behind benefits, there's a purpose statement that helps us to stay focused on what are the outcomes we're driving. So that's one of the ways that I've used to help not just get leadership buy-in, but to maintain focus and support for employee well-being opportunities, is tying it back into mission, vision, and values of the business, and then having a cascading effect into your programs.
I love it. As somebody said, Bamboo HR rocks, and I can tell why now. It's a very well thought through answer. And we just we're getting some questions here. They're saying, will we send the recording? Yes, everyone will get the recording after the webinar is over. And we'll have some time for Q&A, everyone, as well. So Bernard, you want to follow up on that?
I think Cassie put it beautifully. I mean, like, just to kind of build off of that point, it is about the employee value proposition. Why would a person want to come and work at your organization? What are you offering? And so when leaders think about it, you need to think about the totality of the employee experience, because ultimately employees make your business run. So it's thinking about the employee value proposition. I think wellness lends itself to sustainability. Like, you have to be able to sustain your business. If people are burning out, obviously that's not a positive. You also want to think about your culture. And then most importantly, it goes back to mission and values, as Cassie said. If people don't see that alignment, they will vote with their feet and go somewhere else where those things are better aligned. So it's really about putting your employees first, understanding the immense value they bring. And I think, you know, we have that at Gusto where leaders really legitimately and deeply care about employees. But for leaders who may need more convincing, is understanding that bottom line. If your employees are frayed at the ends, and they're not getting their oxygen first, how can they tend to your customers? How can they expand and grow into markets that you don't necessarily serve or hope to serve? So it's really thinking about the totality of that experience and what you're hoping to achieve in the end. And that's why wellness should be the center of all of your strategy.
That's beautifully said. I love it. But, you know, I want to make it a little harder here, because Wellness Coach is a platform for wellness, and not every company has the budget. So not every time leaders agree. Like, we have to face that harsh reality. Michelle, you were able to convince your leadership team very quickly, but what is the advice you would give for those who are not able to convince their leadership or not able to get buy-in? And I would love to hear from Cassie and Bernard as well. Like, so let's just make it practical. Let's give our audience some tips and tricks here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a practical standpoint, you have to understand that it ties directly into your healthcare. It's a direct correlation into your healthcare. All you have to do is sit down and go through your annual report potentially with your leadership team. Show them, you know, we all know in HR it's obviously confidential information, and you're being able to see the breakout though of what are your mental health claims, you know, what are your musculoskeletal claims, what are your heart claims. All of these are potential lifestyle. When we know in HR, when we look, what are the major diseases? They're lifestyle choices. And tying in how your wellness and well-being programs can assist with that. And again, mental health is a perfect example of that. You know, where can you reach out to employees, ensure that they're getting the right resources, that they're not necessarily needing to be on long-term medication? Or, you know, someone has a health condition, and there are opportunities there in that wellness program that you can get them more active, that again, they don't have to be on the medication. They don't need the back surgery. The data will drive truly the wellness initiatives, and being able to help the leadership understand of how they tie together. There's a lot of information out there, again, tying health and wealth. right? Your health and wealth is another financial well-being. If you are not well, ultimately that's a financial impact to you. You may have to come down to deciding, okay, what's the cost of my medication versus my groceries this week? So it's practical, but data is really key to how you tie that into your healthcare cost and overall financial.
Love it. Cassie, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I was going to go, is talking about data. So to add to what Michelle talked about, I think you have to step back from it and look at it as if all things were possible. So think blue ocean. Don't think constraints. Don't think in terms of budgets. What could you do? What are the needs within your business? And then once you've identified that, you have an opportunity to look and say, where am I already spending money? Sometimes it's not about a new budget, but it's about reworking what you already have. Because yeah, maybe you look at the way you invest in your healthcare benefit programs, and maybe there's a portion of that you need to be investing specifically into wellness programs, whether they're directly correlated into your healthcare plan or if it's a supplemental offering within your total benefits package. There's also the opportunity to think about what's free. So about 90% of value you can get just from the thoughtfulness of caring and taking the time to think about it. And then you're talking about, okay, can I get a budget for programs and resources that help support, sustain, and even elevate the outcomes? So start with that idea of what's possible. Look at where you're already spending money. When I think about getting new budgets, I mean, you're already spending it, whether it's retention and turnover, whether it's absenteeism, if you're talking about engagement, right? If we have people on the edge and we can support them, they will be more effective in their job. We already get a better ROI, a more productive and happier employee. So it's all there in the regular math of doing business. I think the thing that most often gets in the way is we don't take the intentional time to make sure that we're all in and believe it, and we've thought it through front to back, back to front. And then we can go have those conversations and help people understand who may be further away from really getting the big picture, understanding the impact it's going to make.
Love it. So first look at your claims. You're already spending a lot on medical, so it's easy to create an ROI, as Michelle said. And Cassie said, be thoughtful. 90% you can just do by being thoughtful about what you want to put together and take it to leadership. I love it. Bernard, over.
Yeah, and just building off those points, I think, it's true. Look at high deductible claims. Your broker's going to come back to you, say your rates increased, and your renewal is not going to be great for you. But also from a practical matter, one thing when I've done benefits design, it's a lot of folks don't even know what's in there. Like a lot of staff just don't know, and I would encourage them to revisit it. So I think from a leadership standpoint, it's repackaging and communicating out just what those benefits entail, and then saying, did you know? Because you can almost look across utilization rates and see that folks aren't using stuff that you're already paying for. So basically it's repackaging the old as new and saying, did you know about this? And did you know that was there and that was there? And I think bringing greater awareness to staff that allows them to utilize the benefits that you're already offering, and you don't necessarily have to go out and get new things. And then even with those constraints, you might even be able to work with your broker to see about, at least the next time going to renewal, or are there any other added benefits that you can push within the scope of things that you already have. So a lot of times people are willing to work with you, just have to ask. So you don't have to go out and increase your budget by $1 million to get this many more benefits. A lot of times it's right there beneath your feet.
Spot on, Bernard. One of the things I would share is most of our customers are getting wellness funds from their insurance companies, because what's happened with the pandemic, you're not going to your doctors as often as you used to. I haven't gone to my dentist. Sorry to tell you guys that, but I don't feel comfortable being next to the doctor right now. So they're saving money and they're willing to give some of that back in wellness funds back to you. So I think that's another trick that's kind of worked in this time. Let's talk about the EAP plans. They've been around for a long time. Most people don't even know most employees don't even know there is an EAP plan. In some cases, what we're hearing is EAP is exhausted because it was designed for infrequent use, or also was designed for not being used in many cases, actually. Bernard, let's start with you, Bernard, on how do we, first of all, if the EAP is not known, how do we make it aware to the employee base that it exists? If it's getting exhausted, what alternate strategies can we present to the workforce?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we did was early when the pandemic first broke, we have an employee resource group called AVID for folks with visible and invisible disabilities. And together we wrote a note just kind of encapsulating all the things that we offer. One with our health insurance offerings, within our employee assistance program offerings, within our wellness benefits offering, and couple it all together, as well as stress relieving techniques, talked about self-care. It was a really overly exhaustive note, but we really wanted people to think about all the different things, so that way they could take all those various tools and cobble together solutions that might make sense for themselves. Because if they max out on the EAP, then you can also explore what our health insurance offers. And so you can sometimes build together a medley of solutions for that individual person, because everyone's going through something. But some people need 10 sessions and some people need 3 of this and maybe 4 of that. So it's really just like a la carte type of feel, what we're going for. And I think that helped a lot of folks know all the options they had, versus like not feeling like you had anything. So once we shared that information, we did see good utilization because people were more aware.
Yep, that's well said. Michelle?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same with what Bernard, we did as well. I mean, it was really, when the pandemic hit, it was really, okay, let's reevaluate what are all the resources that employees have. And you touched on it. There's so much in your health plans. There's so much out there that it's exhaustive, that employees, and again, we all talk the language in human resources for the most part to know what that is, but employees don't. So the education around that was really, really critical, and really simplifying what was there. And we did the same thing. We looked and said, looking at the EAP and looking at the wellness coach as one example, to offer up those 2 programs specifically right out of the gate with the pandemic, because people associate, the bad thing about it is the employee assistance program probably needs rebranded, because it's been out there forever and it has its own stigma that people think, oh, it's only when I need to see somebody because I have mental health issues. And they really have evolved. There's so much information now out there and tools and resources. It's better to use your EAP than Googling questions that you have, and it's a company provided benefit that's out there. So like Bernard said, it was critical, and we still do that. We still go out and really try to promote those programs so employees know that these are resources. They're thoughtful resources. We just didn't randomly pick them. The company thoughtfully picked these programs for you as an employee to use. And it's just reminding employees that the company has provided, that service to them.
Yeah, perfect. Cassie, anything you want to add?
Yeah, like we know, EAP's been around forever, and is it actually adding value? A couple of years ago, we had deep discussions at Bamboo HR about that, recognizing and acknowledging the opportunities to support mental and psychological well-being for our employees. And I was really grateful to get the support where we went into a new EAP, because I was seeing a scarcity mindset, right? You get X amount of visits per year. And then sometimes people will not use those to save them for that rainy day, when those are exactly the people who should be diving in and getting. And so I was grateful to get approval to have an unlimited EAP, so that regardless of what health insurance coverage you had, mental health first and foremost was available, outside of course, chronic or acute needs that should be really done with a dedicated professional. That one was really important. And then we spent time looking at barriers to utilization, right? Why don't people use it when they know it's there? So Bernard talked about, do they know it's there, and how are we communicating it? And did you know? For us, we were thoughtful about the +1, right? Not the employee, but how do we go out into, so in our benefits pillars, one of them is community well-being, which is where we encompass all the participants, not just the employee. And so we talked about, how do we want to educate those people? Because maybe the +1 at home needs it, but the employee doesn't. And are they using it? Or in the pandemic, we're seeing that our employees' children need this to help cope with the uncertainties and changes around them. We also doubled down on manager training. Sometimes people are just scared to reach out to HR, right? Keep your head below the radar. And so do our managers know and understand, and can they appropriately encourage and market this benefit that's already being invested in a way that creates safety around acknowledging things that people have classically tried to avoid sharing in a work setting because they might be looked at differently. So bring that awareness, but look at what are your barriers to participation and how could you attack those individually.
Love everything that's been said. And I think that's the silver lining, that we can talk about it more now, more openly within the workplace, right? Just a quick programming note I want to make. Anyone that's attending wants free access to Wellness Coach that doesn't have a job. We are giving it away for free. And if you want free resources that you cannot afford, there's a lot of stuff that we have for free as well during the pandemic. So please reach out and don't worry about the budget. Let us know what you need. Let's keep going. I want to make it personal again. How's your day adjusting to this new work-life lack of boundaries? Let's start with Michelle. You yourself, the kids. How does the day look like? When do you draw these boundaries between work-life balance, or how so you want to?
Yeah, I think, again, that becomes kind of like everyone's own personal of how they like to manage their lives. And I would think obviously a lot of us are working from home still. And, it has allowed you to kind of customize how you handle your day. And I think that's also very important that organizations are looking at that. That flexible work is extremely important because, we have seen issues with trying to homeschool kids, right? Trying to help them with their schooling. So, I sometimes get up very early. Maybe I got up nice and early this morning and got for a run because I knew I had a busy day today with this and a couple other presentations. That flexibility allows me to do those things now where, typically when you were in an office, you had to be in that office, you had that commute. So personally, I think it's been very beneficial. However, I'm also somebody that for many years have worked from home. So I had that balance already. I understood where those boundaries needed to be set. And I think that definitely is something as employers could help employees do a little bit better job of, ensuring employees don't feel as though they have to be online. Just because you can be doesn't mean you should be. So that has definitely, for me personally, I enjoy the flexibility because, we all have so much going on in our lives. I would say the pandemic has really changed some of those priorities. It doesn't seem as hectic. I'm not sure how that's possible, that it doesn't seem quite as crazy of running everywhere, probably because things are still somewhat shut down and limited, but it really is the flexibility, but having still the boundaries. You have to have the boundaries. It's really critical, again, to your overall, not only, again, mental health, that you can unplug, but also the physical aspect of it.
Yeah, that's what causes burnout if you don't have clear
Exactly.
boundaries, So for my wife and I, we're both co-founders of Wellness Coach. So it's actually double hard for us because we're working throughout the day. And then we have to say timeout, we have to call it a day every evening and then starting in the morning. And that's what keeps us sane. Otherwise, pandemic and a startup, that's very difficult to do.
Yeah.
Cassie, I'd love to hear how you're managing it.
Yeah, I think that we've really leaned into the communication realm. I think that's been central for everybody to help find and drive success. But for us, again, I go back to that kind of mission, vision, values idea of what is the purpose behind your communication. And so we have crystallized around this idea of providing clarity and providing certainty where we can, right? In the midst of all the changes and all the unpredictableness, we felt that that was probably the most important thing we could do, is bring clarity and certainty to our employees. So whether it's instituting daily stand-ups so that as a team, you are in touch with those humans and you know how they're doing, if they're didn't wake up on the right side of the bed with Bernard and, it's already going to be one of those bad days where they tip out of balance. How do we support them? But we also doubled down on communicating. So we had about 30% of our workforce was remote pre-COVID, and now we're 100% remote. So that meant that 70% of our employees hadn't built that muscle. And we had to start communicating and educating on here's what success looks like working remotely. And so we had some resources and articles we gave them, talked to them about new patterns to establish in their life. But then we've also had to, like tipping back into the wellness, teach them. So many people are now not taking PTO because they're already at home and I already at work. So they haven't learned that mentally in the transition. And so how do you teach them take time off? Or even, like I love Michelle's emphasis on flexibility, but I find that some humans ourselves break it. Like I do that. I'm an INTJ, so I tend to work in long focused drives, and I can go from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. and would go, wait a minute, I never even got up out of my chair. I didn't hit a restroom break. I didn't go get a drink. That's just how I work, but that's not healthy. That's not sustainable. And so, or do you know your people at that level? And are your managers leaning in, and are you as a business leaning in and teaching them the right way to find success, which has to improve a holistic view of employee well-being and not just kind of the work in front of us.
Yeah, I think the building that muscle, I love that comment because, those who haven't worked remotely, like, Michelle, you worked remotely before. I'm working, the whole company, Wellness Coach, first company, but those who are now starting to do it, especially with kids in the house, and a very different sort of muscle. That wasn't the case before. It's got to be a lot harder. Bernard, how are you dealing with it personally?
Yeah, it's a roller coaster. I think with COVID, I have three kids, 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 20-month-old. So for me, really, I felt like I was broken when school started and having to deal with two little ones online and trying to never having online school. And then my wife and I are online. So it's just, and then that was a real adjustment. I was like, I think I'm breaking right now. And then I decided, my boss was always very supportive, and she's like, take time, do all the things that you need to do. But at the same time, you feel like, where would I go? What would I do, to your point? So what I found is like deeper reliance on your team. That's what teams are for. You have to count on one another and know that, that's how you're going to get through this. And then also I'm empowered myself to say no. Because otherwise you take on more and more and more, and next thing you know, you realize you've overburdened yourself. So I think once I changed my mindset and relied more on my team, not that I didn't rely on them before, but like really like pull them in and we're a team. I feel like I hit my stride after that mindset shift. So I feel pretty good, actually. I actually feel great.
All of you are so positive. This is great. I think the audience is loving it. Let's talk about the team a little more, Bernard. So the family is also a team, your wife, kids. How are you guys dividing at-home tasks? Let's get into that.
We look at our schedule each day. You go, what meetings do you have? And then we just prioritize. We both prioritize our meetings. Like I need the office. Like my wife needed the office before I had the office. I'm like, okay, I only need it to this point. And then she, we just switch off. And then with our littlest one, she's always on the move. So you're just really switching off throughout the day. I'm kind of a night worker, so that kind of works out for me, and I can do a lot of things on my phone. So we're making it work somehow. And then my other daughters, they love to help, even though it's not taking care of little sisters, not their job, but they do love to help when school's out. So you're somehow making it work in terms of duties. Like we always had our assigned duties in terms of like I wash dishes and we split meal, we both cook and all that stuff. But the great thing about COVID, forgive me, there's another silver lining. I'm home for dinner and I get to sit at the table and we get to have those moments together. So it's become actually more manageable because I'm eking out more time in the day versus the time that I would have used for the commute. Living in the Bay Area, the commute was significant. So now it's just like I have more time to just do what I want to do, which is just really nice.
I love it. I'm being pinged that we're running short here. So I'm going to actually switch to the audience. Please feel free to ask us questions, audience. I know there's a few questions already lined up for us. And then we also have a short poll that we would like to do at the end of the session. So I'll leave a couple of minutes for that. Let me start with the first question. I'm actually not going to read them in the order they're being sent. What data metrics from an organization should we be thinking about for pushing? What data should we be thinking about to get to the management for pushing this program? Maybe Michelle, you want to take a lead on?
Yeah. I think, what I have used in the past, and I have background in consulting as well, and what I've used when I've introduced to clients is really using, generally your annual report can provide a lot of information to you. It's going to be able to provide some year over year from your healthcare provider of where your top 5 claims are. Where are you seeing your greatest spend? What are some of your highest RX claims that are coming in? And really, almost all of us, you know, again, from a consulting background, the mental health is really high up on pretty much everybody's top 5, at least top 10 in your claims experience. And using that and being able to build a case as to why that is important and see those claims. They may not be very large claims to start with for all organizations, but they can be significant because of the presentee and the absenteeism and all the other trickle-down effects that those claims have. Not only, again, are you looking at health claims, but then you're also looking at the fact that that individual may start being missing work and you may have problems with them performing. So you create that bigger picture by taking and starting with that data and then expanding it out to the broader picture, to the management of the areas that it touches on, and why that, again, wellness and well-being programs are important to address.
Yeah, we have a few questions just on this subject. So obviously, our audience finds it very, interesting, important, this question. Cassie and Bernard, maybe you want to share your view?
Yeah, I would say make sure that you include some sort of an industry benchmark, right? Because what are you comparing against? Here's my data, but is that good or is that bad? Certainly you want to be tracking trends over time within your own data set, but to me, it's always important to have a benchmark. And sometimes I even like to consider, okay, here's where a benchmark is at, but here's where our internal benchmark is, meaning our expectations are adjusted because of what's unique to our business. That's important. Think about data behind your EVP formula, right? What is your employee value proposition, and where's the data on that? You're looking at retention, you're looking at time to hire metrics, some things there. Michelle talked about utilization patterns, which are important. We also have a dynamic of participation patterns, because who's participating and who's not, and what's going on there. At one point, we were looking at our dental plan, and we saw, no, it was our vision plan. And nationally, they said 65% of humans have some sort of a vision need. And yet we did not have that many participating in our vision healthcare plan. And we recognized that there was an untapped pent-up utilization need, meaning employees had needs that were not being met. So we restructured it to get to a participation level that we knew was appropriate and healthy. The other one I like to include that we often forget in the middle of pushing data is that qualitative metric. And I really like to capture that through stories. So there's the data, and then there's the humans that are behind the data. And do you have that, and is that part of your discussion? For example, we've always leaned in heavy into financial fitness. That's what we call it. And so it's that idea of financial well-being. And we offer a course that teaches financial literacy and budgeting skills, and all employees can take it. The costs are reimbursed. You get a $100 bonus when you complete it. But more important, I do an exit interview with them, or someone on the HR team does, and we ask, what was that like? What did you learn? Was there value for you? And it was both scary and exhilarating to hear the things that people shared. You know, I had one employee who said it saved my marriage. Right? We fought all the time about money. And so to have that kind of a story, or to have somebody who says, yeah, I was planning to go out on a maternity leave and I was terrified. I didn't know how I was going to make it. And that really helped me wrap my head around it. And I could understand all the benefits and how they correlate together. And so there are really good stories out there. So make sure you include those qualitative components in your overall data review and strategy.
Yeah, very well said. I think financial well-being is not as emphasized as it should be, because, you know, lack of financial well-being causes stress and causes anxiety. And it's actually exaggerated in times like these when, you know, you're having this highest unemployment rates and all that. We strongly recommend people to have a rainy day fund, you know, to have a planning for their retirement. You know, just think about, this is happening every 10 years. You know, there was 9/11, 2008, 2020, it's going to happen again, you know. So are you ready for the next, you know, unforeseen event? Bernard, would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, building off of both those points, I think it's also thinking about kind of to Cassie's point, like qualitative and quantitative, but like putting your ear to the ground, like one of the parts of my remits are diversity, equity, and inclusion, and working with our affinity groups. I'm like, what are they saying? They're like the canaries in the coal mine. Sometimes might have the biggest in count of people, but you can kind of hear what they're experiencing and see like, is that an issue? Should I be concerned about that? And you can try to correlate that as a signal to other things that might be going on in terms of leave utilization. And then also just pulsing your folks, like, we have our own net performer score internally to understand like how people are really feeling. We're able to ascertain sense of belonging. And I think when you couple all those different things together, from all those different utilization rates to how many people are actually taking leave, you can actually have a better, I guess, report card for how your organizational health is. And then you can say, based upon all this data, this is what I think it is. Because I think one of the most dangerous things you can do is look at one body of data or one source of that information and then go, that's it, versus looking at everything and the totality, what might be going on in your employees' lives. And then you can come to a better picture, or at least a more informed picture. You're never going to get it all right, but it's more informing when you look across that information.
Yes, so don't just look at data, look across the data. Also, I love the point on stories that Cassie mentioned. Wasn't the last episode of Game of Thrones like people remember stories, right? So stories are always memorable. So I think that's just the right way to put it. Get the data, create a story, and then get it to your leadership team. We have a question that I think is very relevant to where we are right now. Somebody mentioned Leo is saying he's an addiction recovery coach. And what we've seen with the pandemic, we've seen increase in substance abuse, alcoholism. Are you guys doing anything specifically to help your employees with that? Maybe Michelle, you want to start with that?
Yeah, we have not. We have not called out a specific area of what is mental health to that. We are really addressing it more holistically overall. So we have not specifically addressed that particular area.
I mean, there could be privacy concerns too. As an employer, I would imagine you could give access to help,
Yeah, I think, with a lot of this stuff that we've already been talking about, when we do talk about anything of building a case and talking with leadership, it is all very personal. It obviously is a lot of the obvious private health information. But everyone, as we've talked about, how many people are going through something, and everyone has a personal story, a personal issue. So yeah, it really is dealt with more holistically to ensure, again, the resources are there, the needs are there, you understand where you can get what you need, but it's not specifically addressing one particular area over another. I would say maybe a little bit different of that would be more, again, anxiety, stress, feeling overwhelmed. Those are more things because of the working specifically from home, but not truly alcohol or drug addiction.
Thanks for answering that. Let me take the next question in terms of time. I think we're getting a lot of questions here. Cassie, that's over to you. The question is it better to promote wellness programs top down, or the HR managers should do it directly? What does it work better?
All the things. Yeah, you need a top-down approach. You definitely need a really strong interacting mechanism with your HR teams. I think you also need it with your managers, because at the end of the day, if they're not doing it, that's where it dies, right? I can preach all I want about, having a really good wellness approach and being mindful of individual needs. But if that manager is only focused on do the job, nothing I say matters. There's also an opportunity from the ground up, meaning, have you built a culture in your business where people can be vulnerable, they can be open? So even going back to that question about health and support and services for something like alcoholism or drug addiction, do you have a culture where people know that they are appreciated no matter what, right? Whether it's because I'm unique in this factor or I have this need in this way. So there's approaching it on a company level, but even within your teams, are you helping your managers be effective at being supportive of whatever the unique need is for that employee? And do they even have enough education to help maybe identify, hey, I think something's going on, I don't need to know what it is, but how do I offer support? And so make sure that within what you do offer, you have clearly seen we do have this type of support and service available for it. And then in the places where you educate around your benefits, you can more better and more detailed call out. Here are the benefits available for specific need A, specific need B, so forth.
Love it. And I'm going to just keep asking other questions. So Bernard, this one is for you. The question is more around what's the role of wellness coaches within the organization? And do you, I'm going to add to that, do you guys have a wellness committee within the company, or do you encourage something like that?
We don't have that at present. I mean, we obviously have a benefits team that looks at it to make sure, are we meeting the needs of our employees? We do look at utilization rates, but we don't have a specific committee. We work with our broker, who then helps us make suggestions as to, because I think from the broker's vantage point, they're able to see what all the people they represent, what the trends are, and help you be more precise in terms of your offerings. So that's a heavy reliance, and also historical trends in terms of what we've needed before. Obviously, COVID is a new era where you're like, nobody knows. So it's basically, art and science, if you will, and then a lot of just guesswork to try to really get it right.
Yeah, and in our experience, we've seen when companies have wellness committees, the program tends to do better, just because, to Cassie's point, everybody is sending the information, and it's your colleagues as well, not just your leaders. So I would say all of the above. Everybody should be promoting wellness, because 1 in 4 are suffering from stress and anxiety. I want to ask this question, Michelle. I'll have you start on this one. It's a very important question, I think, and great question whoever asked this one. How do you encourage managers to be more compassionate and vulnerable, to encourage employees to be this?
Yeah, I think, that's a question that everyone is looking for the answer for. I mean, that there are programs that are being integrated. Part of it comes from your culture. Part of it comes from even your own personal background. I mean, some of that is just ingrained as to who you are as an individual. And that might require a little bit more training. Empathy is huge. I mean, we talked about that a little bit in terms of focusing on the ability to give training and education around the empathy. It is critical right now. And there are programs out there that can assist with that, but it really should be incorporated as part of the culture, especially right now with COVID. And again, we keep on saying COVID, but those things have been around. Those are things that your manager should have already understood and learned, but it's been heightened now because many times they weren't maybe dealing with it as much or as many issues. So now with COVID, it is really important that those managers are getting that training on empathy, and it's not a weakness. And that's what I think people need to, you think of managers and they're going to be difficult and they're going to be tough and they won't understand. Managers need to be able to, they need to have that training. And it is more critical now probably than ever, just because of probably the volume that they're seeing. So training is just key to that, and reinforcing that training.
If I can also jump in here. Sorry. I love this question. It's awesome. And even the nature of the question, I think, is where part of the opportunity is embedded, right? How can I make a manager do X? And I think about, are we exempling? Meaning, are we treating our managers like humans? And when they feel human, they can interact on much more of a human level with their employees. I saw an article recently, and they were talking about leaders setting the example by demonstrating their own self-care and well-being behaviors. And that in and of itself has such tremendous power. And so just to add on to what Michelle said, get your managers to be human by approaching them through a human lens. So human first, and then you'll start to get those outcomes.
That's so well said. Bernard, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I think that's kind of the time we have. So I'd love to close on that.
Yeah, it's again echoing those same points. You're really modeling and mirroring. Your employees are looking to you. So if you're a leader within the company, you do want to model the excellence that you hope to see from everyone else. It's very difficult for everyone to embrace kindness if the leaders aren't leading with kindness. So if the leaders are leading with kindness, it kind of becomes this beautiful virtuous cycle where others then follow suit and give each other the grace. So just totally agree.
Thank you, Bernard. We have a poll for the audience. Team, if you want to get the poll up. And I want to close by saying, the stats are very clear. We're in a pandemic. Stress anxiety is at the highest level. So when you talk to people, know that, 3 in 4 are going to go through something. So be kind, be compassionate, and we're going to get through this together. Thank you so much, Cassie, Michelle, Bernard, for this panel. I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I would love to do this again with you guys. And the audience is loving it. Really, really good comments and feedback here. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. I knew we would run out of time. I think we can do this for hours because it's such an important topic. But thanks everyone for your time today. Appreciate it.